How does one keep control of a country? Force of arms, fear and propaganda, allowing a nobleman to change your clothes and wipe your butt? Well, as it turns out, that last option was more effective than you might think, and was the preferred method by Louis XIV of France, who famously said, "I am the state." He managed to get a country's worth of traditionally strong noblemen to fight with each other for the opportunity to change his clothes and even to wipe for him after he went to the bathroom. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, how the did that happen? Well, to understand that, we need to go back and see what made such actions appear necessary. These troubles began in the 16th century, when a German monk named Martin Luther wanted to reform the Catholic Church. This idea spread, and pretty soon there were other reformers such as Zwingli in Switzerland and John Calvin in France. The ideas of John Calvin became popular amongst Protestants in France, known as the Huguenots. The Reformation set fire to Europe, and in France this resulted in what was known as the Wars of Religion. Protestants, led by their nobles, wanted more regional autonomy so that they could practice their faith in peace. This was also beneficial to the nobles, who wanted more power for themselves. The Wars of Religion resulted in numerous massacres, the end of the Valois dynasty, and the ascension of the Bourbons. Following up the Wars of Religion would be the 30 Years' War in Germany, in which France, being very French about it, couldn't stay out of it. The 30 Years' War is a huge mess of a story which is better left to its own video, but suffice it to say, it was violent, complicated, and resulted in the establishment of the nation-state system still used in international relations today. But the fighting was not over for France. Following the 30 Years' War was a series of revolts referred to as the Fronde. There were about 4 distinct frondes, each consisting of different groups that wanted to redress the balance of power in France. By the time Louis XIV came to the throne, France had been in a violent mess for about a century and a half. So he decided that he needed to have ultimate power within the state in order to preserve peace. First, he got all the noblemen to live near the king. Louis XIV built this big palace outside Paris called Versailles. He then relocated his government to Versailles, from which he would govern all of France. If you wanted anything done, you needed to be near the king, and the best way to do this was to live at Versailles. And getting everyone to live at Versailles was a good way for Louis XIV to keep an eye on his nobles. But that wasn't enough. The nobles also needed to earn the king's favor. In a modern dictatorship, the best thing a person can do to survive is to keep their head down and not get noticed. At Versailles, however, it was the opposite. The worst thing for your political career was for the king to not acknowledge your existence. The key to power at Versailles is, as Frank Underwood explains it,
it's all about location, location, location.
The physically closer to the king you were, the more power you had. This means that the most powerful position you could have is a person who physically touches the king on a regular basis. In the case of Louis XIV, this would be the person who changed his clothes every day. However, a close second would be the guy who wiped the king after going to the bathroom. The reason these positions were so valuable is because you have ready access to the king and can whisper suggestions to him. This sounds like a nightmare for the noblemen. They have to live away from their real homes and do demeaning things in order to get the popular girl's attention.
One time, she punched me in the face. It was awesome.
However, think about what this meant for Louis XIV. This man never got a moment alone. He was constantly surrounded by noblemen trying to please him. When he slept, when he dressed, when he ate, even in the bathroom. If he wanted all power to flow from him, he needed to be available at every waking hour. Louis XIV was living through a self-inflicted hell. He also managed to keep control through constant warfare. He went to war so frequently that France was in a fiscal crisis by the end of his reign, which would then be pushed over the edge by France's innate need to annoy the English. So, is this system any good? In one sense it is. If you want to maintain power over subordinates, then this is probably the best system you could put in place. However, my Anglo-Saxon sensibilities will not let me accept this. Just imagine if the President of the United States required every state governor to live at the White House with him. As crazy as people think Donald Trump is, I'm pretty sure he dresses and wipes himself. The weakness behind this kind of system is that its success is heavily dependent upon who is in power. If you have someone who is strong-willed, like Louis XIV, then the system operates. But if you have someone who is weak-willed, like Louis XVI, then you just might lose your head. If you're interested in people who wanted to put kings into power in places that aren't, then click here for a playlist about that. If you want to learn some history about France's great rival Britain, then click here for a video about that. If you enjoyed the video, then subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to be notified when new videos come out. Thanks for watching.